going to show you how to make this collar necklace. It's really sparkly and pretty. I'm going to call it Holiday Sparkle, I think. My original plan was to put a pearl embellishment on the outside, and towards the end of the video I do show you how to do that. But then I changed my mind and take it off, so you can do that. And there will be pearls in the material list at the beginning of the video. However, it's optional. So you will see at the end what it looks like with the embellishment with the pearls. And if you want to do that, then of course you can. And if you do not, this is what it will look like. So let's go ahead and look at the material list and see exactly what it takes to make this necklace. Let me zoom in a little bit on the units so you can see what they look like. And let's go ahead and look at the material list. Okay, for this project, I am going to be using a 4x4 crystal cuboid, and this is crystal AB. Then we will be using a 6mm round glass pearl, and this is buttercolor. We'll be using 2 colors of an 8x4x4 Bicone crystal bead. And this color is a golden topaz, I believe, and this one is an electroplated cream color. I don't know the exact names, but I will tell you where you can get them, and you should be able to find them just by looking at the colors on the site, or you can ask the site owner and she will tell you. I will be using an 11-0 and a 15-0 Toho. These are, the 11-0s are bronze, metallic bronze, and the 15-0 I'm using is Starlight in the Toho line. So it's galvanized permanent finish gold tone 15-0 seed bead. And then I will be using a toggle clasp. I may actually design my own clasping, but if I don't, I will have this little golden toggle ready to use just in case. For this project, you are going to want to use Nanofil or 6-pound or 4-pound Fireline. You do not want to use a thick thread for this particular project, because if you use anything bigger than 6-pound Fireline or 8-pound Nanofil, you are going to have difficulty going through your beads. So keep that in mind. You want a small pound weight, test weight, for your particular project or for your particular thread. I am also going to use a size 12 English beading needle because I'm using these 15-0 seed beads, and because I'm passing through the beads a lot, I want to make sure that I can get through. So a size 12 is going to benefit you a whole lot. As far as these crystals are concerned, you can get them at budgetbeadbox.com, and I will post a link below. So don't worry, I'm thinking I don't have any of those beads and I can't get those beads. You can. Budget Bead Box is open again, and there's a lot of these beads in stock right now, the cuboid and the 8x4x4 bicones. And they're in a whole bunch of colors, so if you don't like my color scheming, you can find something that you do like. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this particular project. Okay, to start this project, you will put onto your needle at least a wingspan of thread. Now, you can put more than that. You are going to need to extend your Fireline or your Nanofil during this project, and if you do not know how, I will put a video beneath the video player on how to do that. So I'm going to start with a wingspan. I'm going to need more than that, but I don't like working with huge amounts of thread. I'm going to start by picking up my elongated bicones, and I'm going to pick up one of each color alternating until I have 4 beads. So this is what I'll have on my needle. Let's get you a little closer, and this is what we have. We're going to take this down to the end of the thread, and we're going to sew back through them. So just bring your working thread over your tail thread, crisscross them, and come back into the first bead closest to your tail and pull your thread through. and pull them together like this. And then as we sew around, we will add an 11-0, and that will strengthen and do our next step all in once. So I'm coming out of this bead right here, and I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit more. I'm coming out of this bead. I'm going to go into the next, but I have picked up an 11-0. So I'm going to bring an 11-0 down between these two beads. And then pull on your tail, pull on your working thread, make sure it pops down between the beads. We will secure it more when we get to the end here where we started. Pick up another 11-0 seed bead, go into the next bead. And again, 11-0 into the next bead. Here, we're going to tie a knot and then we'll place our 11-0 just to secure this first unit, because I've tried it without tying a knot and it just slips around. So just tie a knot with your tail and your working thread. Just a small overhand knot or two, and that's all you need. And then pick up an 11-0 seed bead and go into the next bead. Now you will want to make sure you do have some tail left over. Should have told you that from the very beginning. You will need like at least enough to extend. I will probably need more than this, but I have enough, plenty enough to extend. So because we're not putting our clasp on first, we want to make sure we have enough to do that. Now I've gone all the way around and I've secured my piece and put my 11-0s in place. I'm going to go into this 11-0 and the next one. Go into the 11-0 and the bead behind it. And then I'm going to go up into the 11-0 seed bead. I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s. And then I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 I'm coming out of. And then I will sew back through this unit of right angle weave I've made here. So I'm just going to go up through the side, and I'm going to do each bead one at a time so that I retain the shape of the right angle weave. So I'll go into the next one, I'll hold my thumb and finger over it so that I can get good tension on it, because I want this unit to be nice and neat. And then I'll go back into the one I connected the unit to, right here. And then we'll sew up to the top bead. Now it's going to seem like we're securing these units a lot, but if you do not, your embellishment over the top of your units will be very messy. So just take the time to do it and you'll be happy you did. Then go into the top bead here, like this. Now we are going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead and then a cuboid crystal, and then a 15-0 and an 11-0, a 15-0 and a cuboid, and then a 15-0. And I'll show you what I have. So what we have for this next step is a 15-0 cuboid, 15-0, 11-0, 15-0 cuboid, and 15-0. Then we're going to come down to our unit here. We're coming out of this side. We're going to go into the opposite side and pull these beads into a loop here, just like this. Now we're going to sew back around that entire unit we just made. There's something on there. Get up there. So we're going to go into this 15-0 here, up into the cuboid crystal, and then we're going to go into the 15-0 and 11-0 and 15-0, into the cuboid crystal, into the 15O behind it, like this, and then into the 11O here. Now we have to sew back up to the top, so you can go into the 11O and the 15O if you'd like. And we need to get up to this bead here. So go into the cuboid, 15O, and the 11O behind it, and exit the 11O right here. Now we're going to bring this over the top, and we're coming out of the 11O seed bead right here. Move your tail so that it's not in your way. Push it behind the beads and hold on to it like this. I'm going to get you a little closer just to make sure you can see at this point how we're going to connect this embellishment over the top of the unit. So we're coming out of this 11O here, we're going to pick up an 11O, and then we're going to go into the 11O between the crystals here and pull. Now just kind of guide that up tight to the other 11O, and you can do that by holding on to the embellishment. Now it's not going to be really tight at this point, we'll have to sew back through it, but just get it as neat as you can. And then you're coming out of the 11O between the crystals, pick up another 11O, and go into the 11O between the 15O seed beads on your embellishment right here. And hold on to all your beads. I know my thumb is over it, but this is how you need to hold it. Draw it all together like this. And then let's sew back through this unit we just made on top of these beads. So I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to sew through all 4 of those beads. So into this 11O on the side here, into this 11O on the top between the crystals, and give a little tug as you go through each one. Now right now our thread is very long and we don't have a lot to hold on to. The first unit is always the hardest, but as we work it'll get a little bit less cumbersome to do. So give a little tug like I just did. See how that straightened everything up? And now I've gone all the way around. I have to go back around so I can sew through, because this is my tail side and I want that to be reserved for the end of my project here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew through this 11O. I'm coming out of this 11O. I'm going to go into this 15O and this cuboid bead, and I'm just going to sew over to this side. Now my last unit is coming apart, so you have to pull it all back together so that it doesn't come apart. And if you need to, you can sew around it one more time. Make sure these embellishments are nice and tight on top, or the piece will just not look good. Now I'm coming out of this crystal. I'm going to go into this 15O and this 11O here. And then I'm going to sew down into this 11O. And then I'm going to sew into this 11O right here between the crystals. And this is where I can start my next unit. I'm going to give that a nice tug, make sure everything looks nice and neat, like so, and it looks pretty good. If you need to, you can always sew back around. You can sew through your top embellishment again, just following your thread path if you need to. Now, we're coming out of this 11O seed bead right here. We're going to pick up the opposite color crystal on the side we're coming out of. So if we're coming out this way from our 11O seed bead, and this is the color crystal that is on that side where the thread is coming out, we're going to pick up the opposite color. So pick up a crystal and then pick up the next color, the next color, and the next color, like this. So just alternate your colors. Drop these down to your project, and then go into the opposite side of the 11-0 you're coming out of, right there. Pull these down, and make sure you get them on there pretty good. We're going to secure them as we sew around again and put in our 11-0 seed beads. So just, arrange them nicely. They're not going to be tight and perfect at this point. Then go into the next bead. So you're coming out of the 11-0, go into the crystal bicone right there. And pull tight, and then pick up an 11-0 seed bead. And go into the next crystal. Make sure as you're pulling through your crystals that you pull straight through. Don't pull off the side of them because these crystals are sharp. So you want to make sure you don't cut your thread. Now we're coming out of this bicone, we're going to go into the next one, pick up an 11-0, go into the next one, and pop the 11-0 in between the crystals. And then again, pick up an 11-0. And as you come through this crystal this time, don't go through the 11-0 seed bead that you're connected to. Just go through the crystal. And then we're going to sew all the way over here, but we're going to skip this 11-0 because we want to have the same tight stitch that we have around these on this one. So we need to skip that 11-0 to achieve that and go straight up through the next crystal. And then pull, and then go into the next 11-0. Actually, as you sew through, you can either sew through the 11-0s or just the crystals. It's a little tighter if you just sew through the crystals, but either way will work. Now I'm going to go through the crystal and then into the next 11-0. And pull everything tight like this. And we're going to do the same thing we did previously. We're going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads, and we're going to make a unit of right angle weave on the end here using this bead as our 4th bead. So we have 3 beads on the needle. We're going to go into the opposite side from which the thread is coming out and pull these beads down into a circle like this. Now we need to sew through this and secure it, make it nice and tight and neat. So go through each bead individually, giving a little tug on your thread as you go through each bead. And then, once you've gone all the way around, sew back up to the most outside bead here. So I'm going through this side bead, and then I'm going to go through this top bead right here. Then you're going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead, and a cuboid crystal, and a 15-0, and then an 11-0. And then a 15-0, a cuboid, a 15-0. This is what you should have. 15-0, cuboid, 15-0, 11-0, 15-0, cuboid, 15-0. And then you're going to go into the opposite side of the bead you're coming out of, just like this. Pull this down around so that it looks like that, and then sew back through the entire unit. So I'm just going to turn this in my hand a little bit and start sewing through. I'll go through the 15-0 and the cuboid, pull tight, and then go through the 15-0, 11-0, 15-0. Go into the cuboid, the 15-0, and the 11-0 that you started in. Now we have to sew back up until we get into this 11-0 here. So I'm just going to turn this, go through the 15-0, the cuboid, and the 15-0. And then I will go up into this 11-0 seed bead right here. I'm going to bring this over the top of my unit. And sometimes it's a little resistant, so just kind of push it over. These crystals will lift a little bit as you do that, and that's okay. Then pick up an 11-0 seed bead. You're coming out of this side of this 11-0. You're going to go into this 11-0 between the crystals down here, between the units. You want to go into the same side that you're coming out of this bead. So we're coming out here, we're going to go into here, and pull this 11-0 down, which will then draw in your embellishment. I can get my tail out of there. There. Draw that down like that. And it's not going to be real tight and beautiful just yet, so don't panic. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead and then go into the 11-0 between the two 15-0s. Right here. And you can see how everything's separating. That's okay. Once I pull it through and sew through it, it won't do that anymore. Now I'm going to sew through all 4 of these beads. So I'm going to sew through this 11-0 here, and give it a little tug. Then I have to go down into that 11-0 between the crystals, right here, and pull. And just kind of straighten it. Make sure that it'll kind of lay out like this as you do this. And then continue sewing through your unit. Go into the side bead here. And the reason I'm moving it and making sure is I want to make sure that I have a little movement between the units. And then we'll go into this top bead here. And then we will go into this 15-0, the cuboid crystal, this 15-0 here, the 11-0 right next to it here, just following your original thread path is what you're doing. Go into this 11 on the side. And let's get just a little closer just for the heck of it, just so you can see really well. And then down into this 11-0 between the crystals. Now we're coming out of this 11-0 seed bead right here. We're going to make our next unit again. So since our thread is coming out towards this color bead right here, we're going to pick up the opposite color. So we're going to start with one of the cream color, and then pick up the next color, and then pick up the cream color, and then the other color. And then drop them down to your unit. Oh, get my big old fat hand out of your way. And then we're going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 we're coming out of. And pull these beads down, just like this. I know I'm very close, but I'm doing that on purpose. I'm going to then go into this first crystal, give a little tug, and pick up an 11-0. Go into the next crystal, and pop that bead down in there. Pick up another 11-0, go into the next crystal. Well, there we go. And again. Once we come through this crystal, remember we're not going to go into the 11-0. We're going to go straight across into the crystal on the opposite side. Now you can either sew through the next 11-0 or just the crystals. And sometimes just sewing through the crystals is going to make this unit a little bit tighter. But it also puts your thread at more risk because of the crystal ends. And some of these crystals have jagged ends, so you kind of have to look through and not pick up the jagged ended ones. That's just kind of the nature of this quality of bead. And then we're going to go up through the 11-0 seed bead on the end here. Then we're going to pick up 3 11-0s and go into the opposite side from which we're coming out. Right here. And pull. And I got 4, so let me back out here. And take one of those off. It's arguing with me, sorry guys. And then I'm just going to go back through the opposite side again and pull this down. That's a little better. Now I'm going to sew back through this unit one bead at a time. And then into the top bead, and then into the side bead, back down into this bead. Again, make sure everything's tight and neat, and then sew up to the top bead. So I'll go through this side bead and into this top bead. Pick up a 15-0, a cuboid crystal. Let me back up just a little while I do this so you don't have to see my big old fat hands are in the way here. And then a 15-0, an 11-0, a cuboid, a 15-0, and I missed a 15-0. And I'll show you what I have on my needle. And this is what you have. Let's get close again. 15-0 cuboid, 15-0, 11-0, 15-0 cuboid, 15-0. And then we're going to go into the opposite side of this 11-0 and pull these down. I'm going to just turn my piece and sew back through all of these beads. Make sure you don't miss any of them. And straighten it out as you do it because it likes to pull apart. So giving your little tugs and making sure everything's very secure is important. Now I'm coming back through this connecting 11-0 here and also back up to the top. And I know it seems like a lot of sewing, but believe me, it's important. Now that I'm through the crystal, I'll go into the 15-0 and exit the 11-0 right here. I'm going to bring this over the top, and sometimes it's resistant, but just kind of push it over the best you can. And then, once you have that over, come on you guys, stop messing with me. Little beads are being stubborn. Then I'm coming out of the 11-0 on this side. I'm going to pick up the 11-0 here and go into the 11-0 between the crystals. And pull my thread through. And give it a little tug. And then I will turn it a little bit, pick up another 11-0, and go into the 11-0 between the two 15-0s. Right here. And pull that through. Hold on to your embellishment on top as you do this so it doesn't get all distorted. Like this. Now we have to sew back through those beads to make sure they're nice and secure. So we'll go up through this side bead here. Give a tug. Go down between the units into the bead that's between the two of them. Go into the side bead here. And bend your piece around a little bit to make sure that you don't distort the way it lays and that it has enough slack so that it does bend a little bit and move a little bit. And then go into the top bead here. So you want your joints to be able to actually be joints. You don't want them to be so tight that when we try to do our next embellishments that it doesn't work. And then go into this 15-0, this crystal here. And then into the 15-0 here, right behind the crystal you're coming out of. Into the 11-0, right next to the crystal or the 15-0 you came out of, and then up the side 11-0 here, and then back into this 11-0, and you're ready to start your next unit. Just remember, when you start picking up your crystals, that you want to pick up the opposite color on the side that you're coming out of. So we're coming out this way. You have this color crystal. You're going to pick up the opposite color. And you're going to continue making your units just like that until you have 36 units. Now this is 19 inches long. So I want my necklace to be a collar, so I want it to be right around 19. I don't like it really tight, and I don't like it really loose. Some people for a collar will be 16 inches, and some people will like it to be 20 inches. I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle of that. Now I'm going to lose some length as I add my middle embellishment, but I'm going to add some length on the end here for my clasping and allow for the shrinkage so that I will end up with basically the length that I want. So let me bring this down for you so you can see. I'm coming out of this last 11-0 seed bead right here after making my last unit. And I am going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads. I'm going to do a herringbone stitch here. So I'm going to go into the opposite side of the bead I'm coming out of, and I'm going to pull these two beads down. And then I'm going to sew back through them just because this is a joint and I want to make sure that I have some strength here. So I'm going to go back up through the bead right next to the one I'm coming out of and pull this down and then go back through again. So I'm just going to cross over. You want to make sure those two beads, I'm putting my thumb over it just to hold it in place. You want to make sure these two beads stay laying side by side. Don't pull them tight together. And then go through the bead that you started in to connect them. Now we're going to go up into the top bead again here. And we're going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads. and we're going to start a herringbone stitch. So now we just cross over into the bead that we're next to, going down into that bead and pulling these beads on top of the two previous. Straighten them out so that they lay nice on top of those two beads. Pick up a 15-0 seed bead, cross over, and go into the next two. And now pull that little 15-0 between the first two stitches of the herringbone. We're just doing a small embellishment on top just because it covers the thread and it makes it prettier. Now we're picking up two 11-0 seed beads. We're going to cross over, pull these beads down, lay them out, pick up a 15-0, cross over into the bead right next to the one you're coming out of, and go up through two on this side. Pull these down, or pull the thread through, and pull the 15-0 up between those beads and just seat it with a small tug. And then continue. So we're going to continue doing this herringbone stitch, adding the 15-0 seed bead until we have 16 units of herringbone. So I just count your outside bead, 1, 2, 3, and so on, until you have 16 units. And then we're going to put our clasping on this side. So I'm going to pick up a cuboid crystal, and I'm going to bring it down to my piece here. I'm going to back off just a little bit here, and then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to pick up my clasp. Now you can use any type of clasp you want. You can use an lobster claw, whatever you'd like. It'd be the same process. Now I've come through the crystal, the 11-0, and the clasp right there. And now I'm just going to go back down into the 11-0 and the crystal, and the first 11-0 on the opposite side from which I was coming out. So I started in this side, I'm coming out this side in my herringbone stitch right there. And I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm just going to pull this thread through. Now I'm going to pick up a 15-0 seed bead. I'm going to cross over into the other side of the 11-0 here and pull this 15-0 into place so that this last unit has an embellishment just like the rest of them. And then I'm going to sew up into the cuboid crystal and into the 11-0 and into my clasping. Pull my thread through, go around the clasp, back into the 11-0 here, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to go into two of my beads on my herringbone here. Pull this through. Now sew through the 15-0 seed bead, and then back through the two on this side right here, and then up through the cuboid crystal, the 11-0, and the clasping. And let's do that one more time just to make sure that we have a really nice amount of thread through this clasp. You can use a wire guardian if you'd like, but I just don't have any available at the moment. So now I'm going to come down through one of my beads here. I'm going to go through the 15-0 here. You just don't want to pass through the same one a million times because then it starts to look like it's been passed through a million times. So that's why I went down 2 and now I'm going back up 1. You can go down 3 if you want to do that. It's up to you. And here it's getting kind of tight, so just kind of get yourself through. And back through the clasp. Make sure you have a little wiggle room. And then come back down through the 11-0 and the cuboid crystal. and a couple of beads in the herringbone. And now I'm going to go through that 15-0 seed bead here. And I'm going to come down through like 3 beads on my herringbone. As you do this, don't pull really tight and get your herringbone all screwed up. Go on this side through the 15-0 and bring yourself down. Couple more beads. I'm going down through about 4. I just want to make sure when I end that I'm coming out of this side so that I can travel through and, well, actually I want to come out of this side so I can travel through and begin my embellishments on the inside. So however many beads you go through, it doesn't truly matter. We just want to make sure that we orient ourselves so that when we come through this 11-0 seed bead on our original piece of work, we can travel up this way. So let's just keep that in mind and travel down some more. Okay, so I'm going to think about it now. I'm going to go down. So I want to cross over so I can go down this way. So I'm going to cross over 1. If I can get back into my herringbone here. I'm going down 2, just fine. I'm going to cross over into this 15-0. I'm going to go down through this 1 11-0 on this side. And then I'm going to go through the 11-0 on my piece between the crystals down here. Now look at your herringbone, straighten it out, make sure you didn't distort it all weird. And right here, let's see if I pull on that, if that's going to distort anything. Yeah, it kind of does. So we're going to tie a little knot here so that as we make our embellishments on the inside, we don't distort anything. So I'm just going to go through this crystal here. Gently pull it through, straighten out your herringbone, and then right here go through the 2 crystals, put your finger behind it and guide your thread into a loop between the crystal and the 11-0 seed bead. Make sure that your herringbone looks good because we're going to set it with this knot. So it may get a little bit funny looking, but you don't want it to be all weird. And then just pull a knot down between these 2 beads. As you sew back through the herringbone, you always distort it just a little. That's why I was sewing through the 15-0s to help that, but it still gets a little funny looking. So just kind of straighten it out and then come up through this 11-0 right here. I'm going to straighten everything out again and back off some. And I hope I was in camera because I was really concentrating on what I was doing. All right, so now we're going to go from this 11-0 to this 11-0 on the entire length here, making an embellishment. So we're going to use some cuboids, and I'm just going to use this color bead. You can use both colors if you'd like, but I think I'm just going to go with this one because I have more. That one's broken. So I will pick up a 15-0 and a crystal and a 15-0. when you buy your strands, buy just a little bit extra because some of these little ends are broken. Now, we're going to go from this 11.0 to this 11.0 with a 15.0 Bicone crystal 15.0, and we're going to pull this together like that. Then our next embellishment will be 2 crystals of the cuboid. So we'll just go from 11.0 to 11.0 with 2 crystals. Just like that. Then we're going to pick up 15.0, Bicone, 15.0, and go into the next 11.0. Now I'm putting the 15.0s on either side of the crystal to protect the thread, so make sure that you do that with your bicones. If you want to add a 15.0 between these 2 crystals, you can, but that's going to make your cinching in a little less and give more length to the necklace. So I'm just going to leave it just like that. It looks pretty, it works well. And I'm going to continue all the way to the end of my necklace, alternating between my bicone with my 15.0s and my 2 cuboids, and then bicone, 2 cuboids. And I'm going to continue all the way to the end. Okay, so I've gone all the way around, and you can see that it kind of puffs everything up and makes everything look really pretty with this embellishment. However, this embellishment needs to be tight, so we need to give it a tug, and then we're going to sew up and tie a knot to finish it, to make sure that it doesn't move, because this pulls it into a perfect circle, so we want to make sure it stays that way. Also, at the very end here, I'm going to sew right past my tail. You could sew up, put your herringbone on with your working thread. However, I don't want to do that on this one. I'll extend my tail here, and then I will do my herringbone after I do the outside, simply because I do not want to distort my herringbone again, and I want to make sure that this embellishment sets nicely. So I'm going to go up, I'm coming out of this very last 11.0 seed bead here. And I'm just going to bypass. I cut my tail down so it wouldn't be in my way a little while ago, but I left enough so I can extend it so that I can do my clasping. You can just leave yours long, whatever you'd like to do, or like I said, you can come up into this one and do your herringbone now too. And I'm going to go into this crystal here. I'm going to bypass that 11.0 and go into this crystal here. Pull kind of tightly, and then I'm going to go through these 2 crystals here, put my finger there so I guide my thread perfectly. And now we have to make sure that we have a lot of tension on this middle embellishment, so pull your thread to where it's pretty tight. Make sure you have no slack right here, and then go into your, let's pull that circle down smaller. Go into the little loop you've just made between the beads and pull this down very tightly, making sure you have no slack on your middle embellishment. Right there. And then if you would like, you can tie another knot. So let's go ahead and do one more just to make sure. So I'm just going between the 11.0 and the crystal, guiding my thread down in there. And now I have set my middle embellishment, and I want to start my outside embellishment. So I'm just going to come through this 11.0 seed bead right here. And now I am ready for my outside embellishment. Okay, so for our embellishment, we're going to pick up an 11.0, or actually 2 11.0s, a 15.0, and a pearl, and then a 15.0 and 2 11.0s, just like this. And then we are going to go from 11.0 to 11.0. just like we did on the other side, and just continue with your embellishment. So 2 11-0s, a 15-0, a pearl, a 15-0, and 2 11-0s. Because you could use a crystal here, you can leave it off. It looks really pretty without an embellishment. It just depends on if you want to do that. If you don't want to, then you can just go ahead and finish your herringbone and be done. But I'm going to go ahead and put this embellishment on all the way around, tie off on this end, and then put my herringbone and clasping on this end. And we'll be back to do those things. Okay, so I have made a design decision. This is what it looks like with the embellishment that I've shown you how to do. And you can continue doing that all the way around if you would like. However, I have decided that I just like it better without it. So this is a design option if you'd like to do it, but I have decided I'm not going to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this out. I've already knotted it here. I'll take this thread and sew it through a little bit, knot it again, extend my Fireline, and make my ending just like this and call it finished. And I will come back and show you exactly how that looks. Now, all I have to do is just pull this thread and take all this out. So after I pulled that all out, I'm coming through this 11-0 seed bead here. I'll just go up into this crystal and I'll go towards the back of my necklace. I'll just turn it over and come through the back. And I will just sew into this 11-0 between the crystals if I can. If not, I'll just tie another knot right here. And I think I will. I'll just tie a knot just to make sure everything's pretty secure. Just make sure my thread stays in there. And then see if I can come through this 11-0 here. Up through this crystal. And then I think I'll just call it good because I don't want to sew through and mess up things too much. So I'm just going to burn that down. And hopefully I was in camera. All I did was sew through a little bit and burn that down. And then now I'm going to extend my Fireline or my Nanofil and make my end exactly like I showed you. So I'll just extend it, come through with my 2 11-0 seed beads, and start making my herringbone with the embellishment and put on the end exactly the same way. There's no need to show you again because that's just redundant. So I will do that, come back and show you the finished product. Okay, so I extended my Nanofil and did my herringbone and went through my clasping a couple of times, and now I just want to show you how to tie this off. I'm going to turn it over. I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm just going to cross over to the threads that are between the stitches on the back side, and I'm going to grab that middle stitch right there, and I'm just going to tie a knot. Pull it into the middle and then go down into a couple of beads. Pull it down. Now you want to make sure you don't mess up your stitches too much, so be careful doing this. And then grab another center stitch and tie another knot. Pull it down and get it as tight as you can so that it's not a big blob, and then sew down several more. Look at the other side, make sure you didn't mess it up too bad. Straighten it all up. And that looks okay. So now I'm just going to cut it off. And you can sew down more and do more if you'd like. It's just the more you do, the more likely it is to mess up your stitch. So just be careful. And I'm just going to burn that down. So all I did was cut it off, and now I can clasp my necklace and show you what it looks like. Oop, other way, other way. Okay. And I put this on before I finished my clasping, just held it in place, and it looked really nice on the neck. And I'll try it again, but it seems to lay fine without flipping or anything. It's a pretty good design. But anyway, that's what that looks like. Let me measure and see just how big it is so that you will know how to judge your own length. And it is right at about 19.5 inches, which is a nice length to lay right at the collarbones for most people. If you're a very small person, it'll be a little big and you'll want to make it a little smaller. If you're a very big person, you may want to make it just a little bit bigger. But that is what that looks like. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. See you later.